and the rockets' red glare. The bombs literally bursting in the air. Gave us the proof we needed to know that our flag, a physical representation of the great American experiment that man can rule themselves, was still there. I mean, it's in literally every church hymnal. We learn it at school, and we sing it at every sporting event. And yet, although you may know the words, and perhaps you may even know about Francis Scott Key, uh, the writer of the poem, today, at Rolling Through History, I want to look at the actual events that took place that day in order to understand the very meaning of this anthem and why it still defines the ideals of every citizen of this nation today. So today we find ourselves in September of 1814 in Baltimore, Maryland, during the War of 1812. Now, the war was not going well at all for America. Britain was not holding anything back in terms of fighting and their strategy. The main route into Heartland, Maryland. Many towns, patriot leaders, and anti-British sentiment was found in Baltimore. So the British, knowing that momentum was not on the American side, decided to seize Baltimore from the hands of the Americans. Their only problem was, though, that everyone in Baltimore had built a massive earthen trench around the river on all sides so that in order for the British to land their troops, they would have to first get around a small island in the middle of the river with a small yet heavily fortified fort. So the British naval commander stationed the entire Royal Navy outside the bay, ready for their orders. Now, leading up to the engagement, the British would often seize ordinary citizens and take them as prisoners to be exchanged. One such prisoner was an elderly doctor by the name of William Beans. Dr. Beans, a resident of the coastline of Maryland, had been captured a few days prior when several British troops were sneaking into his farm and stealing eggs, chickens, and, meat stores. Dr. Beans, as any old man would rightfully do, began shooting at them, screaming at them to leave. Apparently, with hardly any clothes on, though. So Dr. Beans and several other prisoners were aboard one of the ships in the harbor when city officials elected a lawyer, a young man by the name of Francis Scott Key, to meet with the British and negotiate a prisoner exchange. The British commander, however, being quite a cheeky fellow, told Mr. Key that, yes, They will indeed swap prisoners with them. But after they, quote, remove the fort from the face of the map and the earth. So at dusk on September 11th, the British began unleashing a constant barrage of artillery upon the fort. And Mr. Key, who was given permission to move about the ship, would constantly go to the deck and then below to inform the prisoners of the progress of the bombardment. All throughout the night, each man aboard the ship prayed, begging God to let the flag stand throughout the night. Meanwhile, Mr. Key witnessed the absolute hellish display of the fight. Now, the shells fired, a large circular shell filled with gunpowder and pricked with a fuse, would be fired high into the night sky and, if timed and arced right, would explode mere feet from the ground in a fiery red flash. Finally, in the early dawn hours of the 12th, the firing stopped. Looking through their telescopes, everyone, both British and civilians alike, peered to catch a glimpse of whether or not that flag was still standing there. When suddenly, the British commander, slowly lowering his eyeglass and his head, proclaimed the American flag was still standing. Not only was it still standing, but only 5 defenders had perished during the bombing. So after the British retreated, Mr. Key successfully negotiated a release of all the prisoners aboard the ships. As the men made their way back to shore, whipping out a spare notebook, Mr. Key wrote his thoughts of what he witnessed on paper. This writing, written to the tune of a popular song at the time, became the eyewitness testimony that renewed the patriot cause amongst Americans, and later, it officially became adopted as our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see, by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at that twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, or the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, give us proof through the night that our flag, it was still there. Oh, say, does that Star Spangled Banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?